We grew up in Goldsboro, Ingrid's husband and I, and we lived in the first housing project in Seminole County. We lived in Casablanca Court. And in Casablanca Court, just a little quick story, I lived next door to Ron and his family. Dr. Bob Kirby Bentley lived behind us. There was a judge in his family that lived behind us. I became principal of Goldsboro Elementary. Mr. Nathan was principal of Goldsboro behind me. So we have a great history of Seminole County residents who grew up right here in Sanford in our community. At this time, I'd like to have Kay Bohart to come and tell us a little bit about your display about Hamilton. I know we have a set schedule, but we have so many wonderful stories in the house tonight, and I'd like to have Kay to tell us her story about Hamilton. And I worked at Hamilton.
Yes. She has the distinction of being our second assistant principal there, and then years later came back as our principal. So not many people can be assistant principal and principal at the same school. So thank you, Dr. Wright. I love talking about our namesakes. We're known as Hamilton Elementary School of Engineering and Technology now. A year ago, this past January, I held up a very faded photo of this couple and didn't have any information about it, and asked the audience. We had a family night that night, and I said, we don't live on Hamilton Street, we're not in the Hamilton community. Does anyone know anything about this couple? And I could hear there were a few people that, were named after them. I think they were teachers, and that was about it. And so I had their photo by our sign-in table, and I noticed as our families were leaving, many of them were taking photos of the faded photo. So I made a connection. This is important. I need to investigate this and find out information about this couple. And what a fun time it was. For the next month and a half, we got prepared for our Black History celebration at the end of the month, as well as rededication of our brand new, newly renovated building. So in that month and a half, I was able to get this photo restored by a gentleman in Lake Mary, and when he saw them, he said, he just looked at them, and I was moved, and he said, I wish I had known them. I'm not going to charge you anything for this. I want to do this for your school. So that was many hours, many layers of, the old church photo. You can tell that that's what this is. That he restored that for me. This couple, they started back in the early 30s at Oviedo School, and there's a photo here, and she's done lots of research in that area of Oviedo, and we have this photo of where they started. He actually was the principal, and he married a teacher, and I just love that love story that they fell in love. But they were in love before that, and they met at Bethune College. Aletha Hamilton, she had finished high school, and what would traditionally have been done, that she would go to work in the field. And she did not want to do that. And her father thought she was quite foolish in wanting to further her education. And she wrote a letter to Mary McLeod and asked if there was a place for her, could she come to school there. And I'm searching for this letter back from Mary McLeod, but she did write back and said, come, I have a place for you. So she had $1.75 to her name. She was able to catch the train in Oviedo and get to Daytona and got a taxi, and she used up all of her money to get there. Well, she did go on to get a degree. She met Mr. Hamilton there. There's a tree on the campus that they could point to and say this is where they fell in love. So I love that story too. They always worked together. So they were both at Oviedo School. They both went to Rosenwald, and they finished up their careers at Midway Elementary. Their daughter tells the story that she always referred to him as Mr. Hamilton at home. So there were even people on staff that didn't realize that they were married, that they were very professional about this. Another great story about them is that they were married 16 years before they had their daughter. And so we've all surmised about that afternoon, you know, when Mr. Hamilton came home and what she had to say to him. But I'm sure at that time thinking, no, this couldn't be. But they do have a daughter. Mr. Hamilton named her. So he took part of his name and part of Mrs. Hamilton's name, William and Aletha, and her name is Willetha. So she lives in Atlanta, and she was very gracious when we were celebrating our Black History last year to come and bring her family and the grandchildren. It was a wonderful time, and the photo had been restored, and it was actually then displayed once again on the wall, and it had been missing for about 4 years. So that was a very poignant moment in our school's history to watch that being placed back up on our wall. At that same time, our mayor of Seminole declared it William and Aletha Hamilton Day, so we had a proclamation. We were excited about that. And then the daughter, I forced her to go through the storage. Look through your parents' things. There's got to be some more things. I want these artifacts. And she found these 2 yellowed newspaper articles, and they have been restored by the same gentleman who restored their photo. He said, you just keep telling their story. I want to do this for you. So we now have this hanging in our school for the children to see our history. And why are we called Hamilton? There's a reason of these 2 educators that combined, they served for 85 years. And in those 85 years together, there were many, many, many African American students that they taught. And that was mostly their population that they taught. They retired in '71, so the integration there at Midway Elementary was occurring at that time. But prior to that, the influence that they have in this county to our African American population is great. Our first principal, I just have to tell this little tidbit. I could talk a lot longer than she probably wants me to, but our first principal was Mr. Gator, and unbeknownst to him, years earlier here in Seminole County, when you wanted to become a principal, you were mentored by another principal. And so for 2 years, he went out to Midway and he was tutored or mentored by Mr. Hamilton. So you fast forward, the school is actually been named in 1983. We've got the minutes up here from the school board meeting. It looks very different than minutes today, but it's obviously on a typewriter. Where the school board, Mrs. Hamilton's name was not up for an option of naming the school. But the superintendent in these notes, the minutes, no, we want to honor both educators. So we are the school named after 2 people here in Seminole County. So that's a distinction. But anyway, so Mr. Gager, finally, he is going to be named principal of Elementary V. It didn't have a name at that time. You can imagine he was just overcome, his daughter said, that when he realized his principalship would be at the school named after his mentor. So it meant so much to him. They had a deep friendship, and he also, Mr. Gager delivered part of the eulogy at Mr. Hamilton's funeral, and this is a typewritten speech of what he gave about Mr. Hamilton, and you can read that. So I will stop there, but I have just learned so much about them, and I'm trying to twist the arm of Willetha to let me come and spend a couple of days this summer and go through her storage, and just give me 2 days. I can find some more things, but thank you for your attention. These are the